The country is, of course, gearing up to host various events in different parts of the country. March the 21st is Human Rights Day here in South Africa. One of the oldest liberation movements, the Pan Africanist Congress of Azania, believes that the current democratic dispensation is not a true liberation until the land is restored to the people who were dispossessed. Now, Human Rights Day in South Africa is linked to the 21st of March 1960, when the events that followed on that day in Sharpeville and Langa saw the death of 69 people. The PAC, established by Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, proposed the anti-pass campaign on the 21st of March 1960, and it led, of course, to people marching on various police stations and, unfortunately, many losing their lives. But let's cross now to Mariska Botha. She's in Cape Town for us. Let's find out what's happening there in terms of the human rights commemorations. Mariska, happy Human Rights Day to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. And the same to you. We're taking shelter underneath a spaza shop. The owner of the spaza shop kindly gave us shelter because it's coming down in Cape Town. The rain is falling. It seems like we're going to get that rain early. But to get back to serious matters, yes, of course, it is Human Rights Day today. And as you absolutely correctly said, it is also to commemorate Sharpeville Day and what happened here in Langa in the wake of the killing of the 69 people up in Sharpeville. Of course, tens of thousands of people took to the streets here in 1960, heeding that call by the then President Robert Sobukwe, asking for peaceful protests against the pass laws. Of course, that turned into a massive massacre. And the PAC says for them, it's not a celebration of Human Rights Day because the land that was dispossessed from the people has still not been returned. To talk to us a bit more about their views here in the Western Cape, we've got Yonela Mazula, who's the Provincial Secretary of the PAC in the province. Yonela, thank you very much for meeting us so early in the morning. What does Human Rights Day mean to you as the PAC here in the province?
Good morning, Mariska, and to the viewers at home. To us as the PAC, my name is Yonela Mazula, Provincial Secretary. To us as the PAC, we do not celebrate Human Rights Day. To us, this day is a commemoration, as we've already alluded, that is a commemoration of the martyrs who have fallen on the 21 March 1960. So there is nothing to celebrate because the martyrs who have fallen during the liberation struggle, their children, their great-grandchildren are still subjected in the landlessness, they are still subjected in the lack of poverty, they are still subjected in many, all social ills, where even till today, even the access to basic education is still a struggle. Even here in Western Cape, there are many reasons for that. Even the online application, even at tertiary level, the access to higher education, the funding of those children is still an issue that there's nothing to celebrate on. Yes.
So what would the PAC like to see happen on a day like this and going forward?
First and foremost, the return of land with no compromise. Equitable redistribution of land, the wealth of land must be redistributed according to the demographics of the majority. We as the PAC, we are not happy about that process because till today, this 29th year, that process is still in a slow process that is taking place. 87% is still owned by white monopoly capital. We still have landlessness. We still have all the social ills that are taking place. There is no progress. Yes, so we want to rectify that. We as the PAC, we can only be happy if ever that can be rectified. That Section 25 needs to be scrapped. Even the whole constitution is not in favor of the African people. For an example, when we want to protest, the state, when the social crimes that are taking place in our communities, the state, we always told that there's a shortage of police officers, there's a shortage of vans. But when there was a protest, which is guaranteed by the same constitution that we are not in favor of, because Section 17 of the same constitution, it says everyone has a right to demonstrate, to assemble peacefully and unarmed, and protest and picket. But the state issued a lot of social security because they were threatened by the march, by the shutdown. But they don't go because the shutdown is an outcome of the the wrongdoings that are taking place in our communities, and we can never be happy of that. And that struggle is still going to continue. So the PAC will never turn back to the issue of land. We cannot compromise the issue of land. Yes.
So do you feel human rights is not valued as it's supposed to be?
Yes.
Speak to us about it.
Human rights, because you have to ask yourself, human rights, what are you celebrating? There is nothing to celebrate. If ever you cannot have a shelter, a decent shelter. For an example, where we are standing, I and you, these old flats are the flats that those who have fallen during the 1960s. They are still their children, their great-grandchildren are still living in these old flats, and the situation, there's no development in terms of if these flats, the drainage, the sanitary, the cleanliness of these flats. So what do you celebrate for as a human rights, if ever the mistakes, the wrongdoings that have been done to the African people are still not rectified? Because Langa, as others, they will celebrate the centenary of Langa, but the same situation you find the African people is still the same, or even backward as compared now, because in these old flats people struggle to have a clean access water, just clean access water. They still struggle. The drainage system, if ever you can walk around, you will see that the drainage system is in tatters. It needs to be overruled. We don't need to do these minor things that as if we were fixing, of which we are not going to the root cause. So there's nothing to celebrate as a human right, as we are saying that as a PAC.
To the root cause, we are, 12 kilometers from the CBD of Cape Town. So what do you view as the root cause of these issues that are still plaguing Langa 100 years after it was established?
To us as the PAC, as we have already alluded, that it's not far from the CBD. You can even see, even from Pinelands, when you see this township of Langa and you see Pinelands and moving to even to the CBD, even to other African townships, there's nothing you can say that Langa is the oldest township of the Africans in the Western Cape. So that centenary means nothing to the African people. It means something to those who really say that we have been freed on the 27th of April in 1994, of which now this is not what happened. This is not the reality, because African people, as I've already mentioned, that they struggle to have basic things like shelter, basic things like water, basic things like education, basic things like employment. There are people who go to bed for a couple of days without having something to eat. They even appreciate, even if they have got not even a decent food. We're not talking about healthy food, just to have something to eat. It's still a struggle to the African people. As we are saying that there's a centenary that needs to be celebrated. No, there's nothing to celebrate on that. We cannot compromise that. We need to rectify the issue of land. The issue of land must be speedily processed and must be reversed. It needs to, because that Section 25 is still the one that jeopardizes the African people. Yes.
Thank you very much. That was Yonela Mazula of the PAC in the Western Cape speaking to us, saying there's absolutely nothing to celebrate from their point of view, as the situation has not changed much for tens of thousands of people who still live in poverty in the Western Cape here in Langa. That's a century old this year. And the PAC saying without land, there's no hope.